remote. It's not dropping everything. Can y'all hear us?
Good evening.
Y'all let me know if the sound's working. Okay, good. Thank you. We are in my office instead of Chris's.
Yeah, my computer's not acting. My computer's acting up.
Well, let's give it a couple minutes and let's see if I remember how to do this. If you hear a rattle, that's the dog.
Yes, the guns are in the office.
There's always guns in the office.
For some reason, my computer's just is not working. Been messing with it.
And now the dogs are playing. Oh, are there guns in this office? No,
Oh,
no. It's very much a girl office. No guns. But that's also good because then that will make it so he doesn't feel like he wants to grab them in the background because
yes.
You're not allowed to do that. He has Dachshunds. We have 2 Yorkies.
Yeah, very meaty ones.
Yes, Chris is losing weight. Okay, I think we're going to kick it off. Let's see if I remember how to do this. If you guys have a question tonight, just pop it into the chat line. If you would like to make a donation and get your chat bumped to the top and get a guaranteed response, you can do that by clicking the $ and using the super chat function. And your question will take priorities over all the other ones that are coming in. Our preferred method of donating is DonorBox. I am popping the link down in the chat to make it easier. You can use that link throughout the chat. Google takes 30%, whereas DonorBox only takes 3% of your donation. So that is our preferred method, but regardless, we'll try to get through as many questions tonight as possible. We have a few that submitted questions earlier today so that they could get their questions asked and answered right at the beginning of the chat. So we're going to go through those first. It'll probably take maybe 3 minutes, and then I'll start pulling questions from the top, and let's have fun. Okay, Ryan tonight on DonorBox, he says, in your opinion, are pistols with a slide-mounted decocker like the Beretta 92 or PX4 Storm safer than pistols with a frame-mounted decocker because the slide decocker fully decocks the pistol instead of decocking to half cock or quarter cock? Boy, that is a tongue twister.
Not at all. There's no difference between either two of them because, for instance, the Beretta, when you decock that, the frame pin's in 2 pieces. So as that's rotating, the frame pin's rotating out of position. So by the time the hammer hits, the frame pin's in 2 pieces. And if you look at most decockers, they will go to a half cock or a quarter cock, or there is a disconnect between it that the frame pin is not actually striking the hammer's not striking the frame pin. It doesn't matter either way. Like I said, a Beretta, for instance, that's not going to go off unless there's no way it's going to go off. You throw up against the wall.
Soylent Green said that question on a lot of cocks. Yeah. Andrew on DonorBox. Thank you, Andrew. I'm glad to see you back for Q&A. I love your support of Penn State because that's where I'm from. Have you ever been to Williamsport? All the gun shops smell like G96.
I've been to Williamsport. My dad graduated from Williamsport Tech. He did his apprenticeship from being a tool and die. And again, I spent a lot of my life as growing up at State College in Lock Haven area.
Mm-hmm. Andrew on DonorBox. Thank you, Andrew. I have an LWRC DI and that has less than 1,500 rounds through it and failed the gas ring test. With new rings, it passes. Would this concern you?
No. It's funny. I'm doing a review on a WRCI individual carbine internal piston tonight or tomorrow. No, I would not worry about that at all. Put your new gas rings on there and let it go.
Kirk on DonorBox. Thank you, Kirk. He said, hope all is well. No question. Thank you for the sounding board on an optic for Project Grendel, the Centurion Arms Frank and Kirk rifle with a 13.9-inch Craddock barrel and 6.5 Grendel. Put Sig Bravo 3 on it as a placeholder until ACOG gets in.
It's a short barrel. We can see how that one works for you.
And I failed to mention when you were talking about G96, we do have a code for G96 that you get 15% off of all of their products. Use SAS15, and that's everything off the G96 website. Dustin on Donor Box. Thank you, Dustin. Were any of the carbines used during Vietnam issue weapons, or were they all off the shelf?
All off the shelf. Those were all XMs. There was no M for those. Those are all XM 177s. So they were all commercial off the shelf. There was no TDP for those, even though they were using a lot of the same parts as the TDP M16s. But a vast majority of those parts, again, there was no TDPs. It was not until the M4 where we had an actual TDP carbine.
Adnan on Donor Box. Thank you so much, Adnan. That's very kind of you. He said, good evening. I don't have any questions for tonight. Just wanted to send over some support along with my prayers and hoping everything was okay with the family. Thank you so much. So that is all the submitted questions so far. And so now I'm going to go back in and I'm going to try to stay in order. But as more and more people come in, I may lose my spot or we may have to bounce around. So we'll see how far we can get. Would you consider a cold hammer forged chrome lined barrel?
Oh yeah, that's my favorite. In fact, Criterion is one I've been playing with a little more recently. Make excellent barrels. Again, that's the military standard. Most of the guns that we see are commercial or QPQ or nitride or whatever. But still, when it comes to the military standard, chrome plated is it. And cold hammer forged. As I said, as we saw at Colt doing testing, that it seems the Colt barrels were just a little more accurate when you put them in a machine rest because of those sharp leading edges on those, which you can't duplicate as much with a cold hammer forge. But overall, for the long haul, it seems that the cold hammer forge gives you a little bit more longer life. So yeah, that's the way to go.
What do you think about the constant recoil buffer design for the AR-15 by a company called, is it Armanov?
I'm trying to remember what that one was. I do remember reading something about it.
How do you say it? I'm saying it probably wrong.
Constant recoil.
Right there.
Armanov. I do remember reading something about that. It was certainly interesting. It's not something that I've had a chance to play with. It's not something that I think is even necessary. It's amazing what they've tried to do with buffers, hydraulic buffers, and some of these other ones, and what actually works. A lot of expensive gadgets out there, but I've read about it, but I haven't actually used one.
ET says we're good because you still have your pinky ring.
This ring was my dad's. When my dad passed, it was his, and my hands are significantly larger than his, so my pinky is the only one that it will fit on.
And then he had to get a bracelet to match. It's like the Guido starter set for.
I've been in New York. I've been in New York for a
while. Let's see. Hi, Adnan. Should I pin my gas box on my ARs?
This is a pet peeve of mine that you guys who followed me for a long time know that this is what I do. This is a major thing for me. I do drill and pin, or if you have the dimple that's in there, which is good, that's fine too. Something to keep that from mechanically moving forward. I've had too many of them move forward on me and the gasket cut off. These were name brand guns too. These were not cheap guns. That did this. For a range toy, I guess it's no big deal, but for something in the real world, absolutely.
Thoughts on putting XS big dot night sights on my HK USP 9mm full size?
Whatever floats your boat. The sights that come with them, they were just white. They never really did much. They did offer some tritium sights. So that all comes down to personal preference. What you like. I mean, they're all going to work.
Why do a lot of CZ75 clones generally come without a decocker?
They're trying to keep true to the original. If you look at all the ones who've done Tenfolio, and even you go into IWI, with the Jerichos and all that stuff, they're keeping true to the original designs. I don't expect you would see a decocker on those.
Let me just grab this one. What's your opinion on the FN 545 to replace the FN Tactical? Right here.
FN 545. The the FN 45 tactical. Well, I'll tell you this. This is I have a FN 45 tactical, and I freaking love it. I can't imagine anything that would really replace that. That's probably the best 45 semi-automatic pistol that's out there, and I'm a big USP 45 fan as well. USP 45 tactical, um, but the FN 45 tactical is probably my favorite.
Thank you. Greetings from the Q's. I guess Syracuse, right? Welcome back. Hope all is well. Just picked up a Chrome BCG from Expo Arms. Any experience with those and anything to look for?
Expo Arms, I doubt they're the manufacturer, but it's probably a Toolcraft or a Microbest or one of those. It's funny because when you look at the guys who do the chrome plating, most of them come from the same place, and it just depends on who puts in their package how much it's going to be. It's usually the same thing. As long as there's no cracking or embrittlement there, I can't see having any problems at all. Chrome is just a little bit more complex to do because you have to make concessions for that with the overall diameter of it, because the plating does add a thickness to it. So if you don't take that into consideration and you say you chrome plate with the bolt, it won't fit in the carrier. So it's a whole different animal when you're doing something with a plating on it like that versus like a nitride or a nickel bar or something like that.
Any thoughts on the Ruger SFAR in 308?
I have only seen some videos on that. I don't have any contact. The contact I had at Ruger is gone as far as being able to get a hold of one of those. But that is one that I would like to get my hands on in the future.
What's your favorite battle rifle in 7.62 NATO?
Oh boy. Well, I have to say it would be my LMT MWS with a 16-inch barrel or 18-inch barrel. Probably would be my favorite. However, another one that my favorite is ones I just don't use is the Colt LE901. And it's one of my favorite guns I don't shoot because Colt does not make parts for it. So if something goes wrong with it, I'm screwed. That would be a rifle that I would use if there were spare parts.
What's your favorite battle rifle? Oh, wait, I just did that one, right? The battle rifle?
Mhm.
Yes?
Yes.
Sometimes I read it to myself and then I don't realize if I read it out loud or if I just read it to myself. Do you want me to send you some Daewoo rifle parts I've been making? I designed new charging handles that are being used by the South Korean military, and I designed new gas regulators.
I have one Daewoo. I tell you, it's funny you're asking me that because there's one part I've been looking for a long time. The original screws that go in where the screw goes for the scope mount. My rifle, when I got it, it was missing those two screws. So I've been searching high and dry trying to find the two original screws to put back in it. So if you have any access to any of those parts, please let me know.
There's a lot of comments about you losing weight, and that it's been a while, and somebody else said you married up. Do you think if the Army goes with a new SIG rifle and ammo, we'll finally get an M855A1 more commonly available on the civil market?
No, I'm a firm believer that this is going to be a very short run project with the M7. I do believe that once it gets into the field, they're going to see how impractical it is for the average soldier. Um, we are taking a step backwards. Where all the lessons that were learned in Vietnam while we got rid of the M14 to begin with, the low capacity magazine, the higher recoil, the inability for suppressive fire because of the heavy recoil. All these lessons that were learned back in Vietnam, we're now revisiting. We're revisiting a heavier rifle, heavier caliber, more recoil, lower lower amount of ammunition that you carry because of the weight. Um, Again, they're looking at guns that will shoot 600-700 yards when your average soldier is not going to shoot beyond 300 meters. Or I don't see it, to be honest with you. I don't see. I see this as being like the AN-94. It's going to be adopted. It'll be probably used in some kind of a limited capacity, but I don't think the M4 is going anywhere. Again, this is my opinion. Can't, not for sure, but that's my opinion.
Tad on Donor Box. Thank you, Tad. He said, long time no see. Last weekend I bought a SIG Tango MSR 1 8 and by a 24 scope for my AR. I've never worked with scopes before. What range should I zero it at? 100 yards or do 25 to 300 zero? What's the best range for an LPVO? And also, have you watched The Last of Us on HBO yet?
I haven't seen Last of Us, no. I will tell you, I zero all my scopes at 100 yards. That's where it starts because it's much easier for as far as you're doing your adjustments in 100-yard increments. Um, by doing it at 25 yards, you're going to be shooting 4 inches low. So you have to compensate for that. So, I mean, 25 yards is great to get it on paper, but for your actual zero, again, my opinion is 100, but you will find a lot of different guys out there who are going to give you different opinions.
So we answered all that, right? Because it's like multi-part, right?
I think it,
About zeroing 100 to 25 to 300. And
yeah.
best range, we did all that, right? Okay. Just want to make sure. Okay, Dustin on Donor Box. Thank you, Dustin. What do you think of the Geisley Low Pro gas block that uses a roll pin as opposed to a stake?
Um, Again, when it comes to gas blocks, I mean, there's not much difference. There's a ton of low profile ones out there. That's the very expensive. Guys are actually very expensive. What it really comes down to the difference is if it's adjustable. Um, if the point of having the low profiles, put your handguard over it. If you're looking for one that's adjustable as well, there's other better options out there. Geisley, a lot of stuff that they put out is it's good stuff, but it's not worth the money. I think you could save a lot of money with some other people doing that. Does it say if he was looking for an adjustable gas system or it was just a standard?
Go back.
There's a video that we just did today on a really good adjustable gas system by rifle speed.
He said a Geisley Low Pro gas block that uses a roll pin as opposed to a stake.
Okay, it sounds like it's just a roll pin is fine. It doesn't matter as long as it's secured in place where you got a hole going through the gas block and through the barrel where it's locked in place. Spring pins are fine. Just something that will keep it from walking out.
If you could only pick one AR-15 in 5.56 and one AR-10 in 308, what would your choices be?
Wow.
It's like picking favorite children.
I've got a couple that it would be really hard right now. I had Monty over at Centurion a while ago. I wanted a rifle that I would use to test accessories on. And I had him build me one to my specifications. And it turned out absolutely gorgeous. And that would be a good go-to gun for me, was the one that Monty did. Also, I have my LMT Estonia rifle, which is really another one that I like. And I also have sitting on my desk a Colt LE6944, which is a 14.5-inch barrel. So those are the three that I keep access to the most. So it's really hard to choose between them. In fact, the Centurion just got an upgrade. Bonnie had talked to me, asked me what I thought was an ideal barrel. I basically told him a 14.5-inch SOCOM barrel with a mid-length gas system without the step counts for the grenade launcher. Next thing I know, several months later, I get one in the mail. He has those for sale right now up on his webpage, which we do have codes for as well.
Centurion codes, yes. I will go pull those while you're finishing.
I now have got a barrel. I SBR that lower receiver, and now I have that 14.5-inch barrel, which is just sweet. It's just an ideal setup.
Yes, we do have codes for Centurion. You can get 3% off complete rifles, 5% off uppers and lowers, and 10% off everything else. There's 3 different codes for that. I'm plopping that in the chat box right now. If ever you need that in the future, though, it's always in the description box of all of our videos.
I don't know if Monty wants me to tell you guys this or not, but one of the things I got sent in the mail was a prototype boat carrier he's working on. And it was a beautiful chrome carrier, very similar to the Knights. But he did one thing that I think should have been done to every one of them. He has a captive frame pin retaining pin on it. So I don't know if that's a prototype that he's going into production with in the near future. But when I opened it, I was extremely excited.
Boom Zooey. Yes, we did get your donation. Thank you so much. We did answer those questions at the very beginning of the chat. So when the stream is done, you'll be able to go back and look at that. Let me scroll back up here and find where I left off. And don't forget to hit the like button, guys. Did we do this one? Do you think an A5 length buffer
Oh,
system?
no.
Okay. Do you think an A5 length buffer system for the 308 AR-10s are necessary?
Yes. I definitely put a standard AR-10, the longer AR-10 buffer receiver extension on there so you can use M4 or regular AR-15 buffers. There's going to be a video coming out on that as well. I had a Diamondback rifle was in 308. It was extremely overgassed, and it came with a standard, you know, mil spec receiver extension with a shorter buffer. So I ended up swapping that out for a proper AR-10 one with an H3 to try to deal with the gun cycling with a suppressor. So I believe any 308 should be using a 308 receiver extension that uses a standard M4 buffer.
Kalen on donor box, thank you. He said thoughts on the Beretta 80X.
Looks sweet. They look sweet. Beretta's the remake they did of the Cheetah, the 85. Oh my God, it was beautiful. They're doing some really cool stuff right now.
The like button got center punch as I kicked in the door. Nice. Matt, thank you. I've been looking at an LMT Mars H. I prefer the heavyweight of the MR762 and have one, the proprietary parts aside. Would I see any major differences or improvements shooting the LMT versus the HK, and why?
Well, I have both. Uh, Cost for cost, the LMT is a significantly better buy because it does so much more. The amount of money that you spend on the MR762, you got one rifle. You spend less than that, you get the LMT. You got you SBR that you got a 13-inch barrel. You use a 16-inch barrel, 18-inch barrel, 20-inch barrel, multiple calibers, multiple different weights and barrels. Now you can turn that into an assault rifle with a lighter weight barrel, or you can turn it into a precision rifle just by swapping it out. You look at the cost; it really is hard to justify that MR762 for what it is. Group wise between the two of them, you get LMT stainless steel 18-inch barrel. I think it'll shoot just as good, if not better, than what the HK is going to give you.
Ryan on donor box. He says, I think you slightly misunderstood my question. I already know that the Beretta rotates the firing pin plunger out of the way. What I'm saying is, would that be considered safer than other double action designs? Because hypothetically, a gun which is half cocked could go off if dropped on the hammer.
No, they won't because all your modern pistols are going to have firing pin blocks as well. So even if that was to fail, so your quarter pack was to fail and it was to strike the firing pin, you still have a firing pin block that's in place on all modern combat pistols. If it was 1911, you're screwed. If you have 1911, that's not a 80 series, doesn't have a firing pin block. Yeah, if that was to fail, that's a legitimate concern. But again, all your modern pistols are going to have firing pin block safeties also. So it doesn't matter. You could literally take any of these pistols, knock them with a hammer. Firing pin's not going anywhere because they physically have a block there. Hopefully that answers your question.
Can you explain why cold hammer forged barrels are more durable? I understand the process work hardens the material, but how does this make it inherently more durable than traditional heat treating?
It's a stress relief that starts off from the beginning and the entire process. You also have the way that the rifling is made too. The rifling is not cut in a hammer forged barrel because of the mandrel. It's basically being pressed on the mandrel and it's getting impressed in there. So you don't have as sharp of an edge. So if you don't have as sharp of an edge, it's not going to wear as quickly. So you have more round edges on a cold hammer forged versus more sharper on a button cut. So obviously having the less sharper edges is not going to wear as quickly as when having the sharper ones. So the actual rifling itself, but the process of the metal itself tends to be a more durable process because of the stress relief.
DI versus long stroke piston versus short stroke piston system for suppressor use.
Depends on your barrel length. I can tell you I've been doing a lot recently with suppressors. Internal piston, the biggest difference is you get a lot more gas in your face. The shorter the barrel, if you're going with a 10-inch barrel or something like that, I probably would recommend more so a short stroke. For that, once you get up to the 14 inches, there's no benefit to a short stroke over or a long stroke over an internal piston. This is a question for the ages. Suppressors, it doesn't matter what you do with a suppressor, you're blowing that gas back into the system. No matter how clean your external pistons are without the can, as soon as you put the can on it, that overpressure is going to pull all that soot back, just like quote internal piston would. Um, the systems are just two ways of doing the same thing. To try to say that one is better, I think is bullshit. It's not. Both systems work. The where the 416 did shine was in the short barrels. The 10.3 inch barrels on the M4s were always a problem because of the gas ports were always opened up really wide. You would get the gas port erosion. The guns would start running a lot quicker. It can be a problem, but again, you also have issues with higher cycle rate of those systems too. But myself, I'm an internal piston type guy. I don't have too many of those guns that use the external pistons. Definitely not my go-to guns, anyways. If you look at my LMT guns that I have, the shorter barrels, they're all internal piston. They're not the external versions. And I've got those barrels too.
I saw that the German government told Hanel to recall their CR223 rifle for patent infringement on the HK416 design. Since Hanel is owned by Caracal, do you think Caracal will be sued?
I have not heard anything about an actual lawsuit yet, or heard the recall. Um, if you look at the patents, I mean, the Caracal A16 is not the Hanel. The Hanel is a totally different rifle, different company, so they're not the same. Um, if you look at what Hanel did, they pretty much copied that damn gas block and the operating system pretty much to a T. Um, Again, I don't know of any lawsuits that are pending other than the fact they lost the contract. And I did even hear Tim over Military Air Channel did a short video talking about how they wanted to recall all the ones that were shipped over here as well. But obviously, you're not going to take guns from people who've already bought them.
Would you recommend the BRT gas tubes for taming the gassing in a suppressed LMT MWS in 308?
No, not at all.
Why won't someone build a true to form AR-10?
Because of the fact that you will have no market for parts. You literally would end up having one gun that would have all these components, and there's no parts or interchangeability. When you look at the full size version, again, if you look at the MR55 or MR762 or the HK417, that is the actual dimensions of the original AR-10, how much larger it is. If you look at the way that it was taken down with the SR25, there is no benefit to going back up to those larger parts again. A lot of the stuff was done initially to have parts compatibility with the M16A2. For someone to go ahead and to recreate all those old obsolete parts that would only go to one gun, it would not make any sense financially to do it, because even you look at what Brownells did with their BRN10, bringing that back, at least all the parts are compatible. If your bolt breaks on that, you can get a regular 308 bolt. If most of your parts break, you can replace those parts. If you had an original AR-10 type, that's it. Those parts don't exist any longer. And it just would not make financial sense for any company to bring that back, given the compatibility that you have right now with the SR25 type parts.
Have you been able to look at the H&R AR offerings?
No, I have not. I've only seen them on the internet so far.
Do you like 6.5 Grendel?
Oddly enough, I'm more of a 6.8 SPC fan myself. Grendel is a great cartridge. I've seen feeding issues with them because they don't feed as naturally as a 6.8 SPC does. One of the companies that I contracted with got a request from a Scandinavian customer who wanted to see if they could turn the 6.5 Grendel into an assault rifle. We got the magazines and we started doing testing, and on full auto, it did not work out very well at all. It just was the way that the feeding was done on it. So as an assault rifle cartridge, I don't care for it. The 6.8 SPC works really, really well in that role of a battle rifle cartridge. Accuracy wise, I think it's probably got a little bit of accuracy edge over the 6.8 SPC. But I like it, but I'm not a fan. I do prefer the 6.8 SPC.
Heather, were you into firearms before meeting Chris? No. I mean, I am a born and raised Texan, so I guess, it's always the assumption that you come out of the womb, with a gun in hand, but I did not fire a gun until I met Chris. Did the Army ever have overheating issues with the M4, or was that just so common?
No, it was so common for the most part, because again, that barrel was not designed to be used as a frontline assault rifle. If you look at most of the problems that were had in the war and terror with the M4 carbines with the overheating was they were being used as suppressor weapons when they weren't designed for that. Once the M4A1 came out with the proper barrel, now we could do that. Those guns were not overheating. Uh, that problem went away. The issue was they tried to make that lightweight carbine do a job that it wasn't designed for. And SOCOM was the ones who generally had those kind of firing schedules for the most part. They were doing that kind of full auto firing. Most of the guys outside of SOCOM, they had 3-shot bursts. They didn't have full autos. But yeah, the overheating issues were primarily because they were trying to make the M4 do a job it wasn't designed for. When SOCOM said we're having overheatings, they got the barrel taken care of. Those problems went away, and that's why the M4 is no longer in production. Only M4A1s. The general purpose Army issue rifle right now is the M4A1 with the heavy barrel, and now we have a proper assault rifle.
Carrie is in the chat.
Aim low.
And this guy is joining from his vacation in Aruba.
Oh wow.
I wish I was there. Managerial initiatives. Thank you so much. Oh, yep. Here's his question. What are your thoughts on Daniel Defense and Geisley?
Daniel Defense makes decent stuff, make good stuff, but again, we start looking at price point versus what you're getting. Same thing with Geisley. There are many guns out there that give you just as good a performance at sometimes a fraction of the cost. I look at Daniel Defense's 308. I had one for T&E a couple of years ago. Nice and all, but it didn't shoot any better than my LMT, my Armalite Super SAS, and some of the other ones that I've had over the years. I don't have any Daniel Defense in my collection because again, I just couldn't justify the money for the performance. Geisley, I do like their rifle. They're full rifle, but you look at what they're charging for the rifle. You don't even have ambidextrous features on there. I just think that there's other better options out there that you can spend a lot less money on and get a gun just as good.
Is the SIG M5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, or whatever it's called, dead?
No, it's in its honeymoon phase right now. The military's starting to receive some of them. Time is going to tell with this one again, because again, I think when it actually gets used in combat, they're going to see the downfalls to it. We're going backwards from what we learned in Vietnam. We're decreasing firepower on the individual level as well as the unit level by having 20-round magazines versus 30, by not having weapons that are easily controllable on full auto. Being in places like Afghanistan, when you're shooting in along mountain, with those longer areas, yeah, it'll certainly stand out there over the M4. It has its place, but as a general purpose infantry rifle, absolutely not. That scope you have to have a college degree to figure out how to use, and they're trying to turn your average grunt into a sniper, and it's not going to happen. Your average grunt's going to be taking on targets under 100 yards. Where these guys got guys who came up with this concept for this M7. M7 is the proper name for it now. They were thinking of all this long range stuff, which your average troop's just not going to do. I'm not very confident that it's going to replace the M4. I think it's going to be one of these things that's going to be adopted. People are going to use them, and they're saying no, and they're going to go back to the M4 for anything short of having long range capabilities. Again, being in like Afghanistan where you're shooting from mountain to mountain. But most of the battles that we're in are going to be close quarter, and it's not a close quarter battle weapon.
Any opinion on the Young Manufacturing hard chrome BCG?
Very nice. I've have several of them. Young, he's like Mr. Smith over Smith Enterprises, who doesn't believe in staking carrier key screws. Now, I know a lot of you people are going to go, what the hell are you talking about? When those are torqued properly and have Loctite on those, you don't actually need to stake those. Mr. Smith and Mr. Young are correct with that. I have never had any leakage come out of any of my Young Manufacturing bolt carriers. And again, they make one of the nice chrome ones, so I use those. So those are excellent. Smith Enterprises is probably my favorite chrome-plated bolt carrier, but he only makes them very briefly, and to get an entire bolt carrier group these days is impossible. You go on Brownells, you'll see a chrome-plated carrier, but you won't find a bolt. You'll find some of the spare parts, but you won't find the complete chrome bolt carrier. But you will now. Also, with the Young Manufacturing now, it's also part of that H&M there, Well, you're getting the new bolt in those now too, where it has the cam pin slot. The cam pin doesn't go all the way through. The bottom is solid, so you're using a narrower cam pin, so you're increasing the overall strength of the bolt. That's also what you're getting with young manufacturing. Now you're not getting a standard bolt anymore.
Do you think Colt could gain its reputation back by making a good modern duty carry pistol, or are they too afraid to innovate still?
Absolutely, Colt is engineering is just sitting on their ass. I still it's so frustrating when you know what the company needs to do to get itself back up and running, and they refuse to do it. They're still concerned about bringing back this 1911 or bringing back this revolver, none of which are going to keep the doors open or are going to give them large contracts. To basically take the XM17 criteria, throw it on the table, and tell the engineers make this, make something that meets this, to make a pistol that would actually be suitable for modern military and modern law enforcement. It just goes over my head, the fact that no one's done that. It's amazing that you don't have to be a Phi Beta Kappa to figure that out. Sorry that you always hit a point with me with that, because I want to see Colt succeed. I really do. But seeing the stupidity that continues there of still living, in 1911 and living in the past, it's great they're bringing back the revolvers and stuff, but there's a small niche of people who are going to buy those. Considering a company that's designed to put out, 3 to 5,000 guns a week in mass production, they don't have anything coming out where they're going to get those kind of contracts. So, what their business plan is there is totally beyond me.
Are all Colts and LE serial number and roll marked M4A1 carbine equipped with the SOCOM barrel? This rifle is circa 2013.
When I refer to M4A1s, I'm talking about the U.S. government issue M4A1s. Those all now they're selective fire with full auto. They got rid of the burst. They have ambidextrous features on them now, and they all switched over to the SOCOM barrel. That's the U.S. government. For as far as the LE guns that coming out of Colt, it depends on what you get. I mean, again, you have regular LE 6920 that use regular M4 profile barrels. You have their copies of their M4A1s. They do utilize the SOCOM barrels. It just depends on what model you get right now from them.
Do you have any experience on Liberty Soul Defense 50 grain hollow point?
Mhm. Can't say as I have.
Have you seen the Tribe Defense Magnite series of handguards before?
No, sir. Can't say as I have.
What buffer weight would you recommend for a 16-inch mid-gas LMT MRP?
H2.
Have you ever used or had a barrel cryogenically treated?
Yes, every LMT barrel that I own is cryogenically treated. There was a company years and years ago back in Rochester, where I'm from, that did that. There was a cryogenic company that people would bring barrels in there, and they would do those for them. But all LMT barrels are all cryogenically treated, all of them.
Thank you. The USA gets its tungsten from China. If we ever go to war, they aren't going to keep selling tungsten to us. The point of the M5, from what I can tell, is to penetrate armor without using tungsten.
Well, the M5, again, you're looking at the projectile that is significantly more powerful than the 5.56. Absolutely. You're also looking at 8,000 psi, and you're over. That's still something else that amazes me with this thing. It's extremely high pressures. So yeah, you would expect that it would.
They should have made you the CEO of Colt, Chris.
Mm. No, they keep people in charge who tank the company, and that's what really amazes me. Is you come into a company that's failing, and you leave all the people in management there who tanked it. And in this time since CZ has taken over Colt, the only thing that we've seen Colt do is they released their MB feature lower receiver, which Colt's had since 2010. So it takes them from 2010 to 2022 to finally release their ambi lower receiver. That's really the only thing that's really happened to Colt since with the military line. They brought back the different pythons, yes, and some revolvers and some things like that, but they have not done anything to further them as a military contractor.
Rollis, thank you so much on Donor Box. He says, have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Do you think the current war in Ukraine is finally going to cause people to rethink how the AK rifles should be modernized, or will they continue to stay in the past?
The AK, one of the things, Tim over Military Michelle did a really good video on the Ukraine, and he's exactly right. Basically, the war in Ukraine showed how ineffective and how behind the Soviets or Russians are with the AK-47s, the AK-74s they're using. They have no ability to do night operations. They're still using iron sights, for God's sake. They don't even have rail mounted optics for the most part on these things. These guns are they're antiquated compared to what is used throughout the rest of the world. You look at the U.S. military with our M4s and Global War on Terror. We did beautiful at night because we could see at night. We had the laser aiming modules on every single rifle. Russians don't have that. They're still, again, using the same shit that they used back in 1947. The gun hasn't really changed much with iron sights. They modernized it with putting a side folding stock on, a telescopic stock, or maybe a rail or something in it. But the core problems are still there. It is an antiquated rifle. There are much better options that are out there, and I think it's cost the Russians abilities to fight at night, where anybody using our equipment is equipped for fighting at night. It is an antiquated rifle. I think by today's standards, it is antiquated. That there are dozens of better options right now, but it's been there for a long time. There's tons of them. They're going to be used for a long time, and Russia is not about to change. I think anything out of the Clash ground platform for a while, just due to the cost alone.
Can a newer Beretta, like an M9A3, be easily converted to be like a Beretta 93R 3-shot burst, assuming this can be done legally?
No, those are the parts aren't interchangeable. They're sort of like the Glocks, where you're not going to be able to interchange slides and all those kind of components.
Thank you, Malcolm. Regarding the LMT quick change barrels and LMT monolithic uppers, I'm having issues getting barrels to seat inside the uppers. Can the thermal fit approach help with this?
You shouldn't have that much. They can be a little on the tight side. If you're having a real difficult time, it needs to go back to LMT and have them take a look at it. The whole point of this quick change barrels is for you to be able to do it just like that. They can be a little bit tight. You may want to put a little bit of CLP on the barrel as it slides in. But if you're having that much of a hard time with it, it needs to go back to LMT. You shouldn't be doing any kind of modifications like that at all, period.
I wish you could bring back the crime gun series. My video on Intratech was partially inspired from your Tech 9 crime gun video. Keep doing what you do. I don't think it's completely dead. It's not gone. I'm still advocating and pushing for it, but
yeah, there's I think we will be doing another one. It's probably going to be on Glock.
Yeah, he's been saying that for a while, so we gotta actually do it, because that one was, because I asked on Patreon, and again, if you're not on Patreon, you should be. It's Patreon, Small Arm Solutions. I did a vote on that, and that was the #1 that people were most excited about, and we never got to film that one.
I see YouTube it flagged my JFK series in one of them because of the gory aspects.
Well,
of
it wasn't flagged. They just put a censor there. I mean, there was some very graphic stuff that's in there. I mean, and I
figure assassination.
Well, I figured that was going to happen, but it's not flagged. But losing the Centurion interview with Monty Leclerc was personally for me.
I still can't figure out what possibly could be in there.
I can only think because he owns Centurion. I don't know.
There's
but
two other ones that be for presidents of companies too.
A lot of times it doesn't make any sense, and I've been fighting the appeal process quite a bit. But that one, yeah, that one for me personally was such a good interview. Listening to him and his how he became a SEAL, and getting his father giving him a book that inspired his passion for that, and then not even knowing how to swim and teaching himself all of that. It's amazing. So that video is on our channel for, what's that? God, I can't even remember what it is. It's that new one. What's the new one, guys? Come on, pop it in here. Help me out. Rumble. Thank you.
Yeah, Rumble.
Yeah, Rumble. So we do have a channel on Rumble. A lot of you had asked for that. So that's Small Arm Solutions again. So that has our most current video that I know is not so current right now with the gel testing. And I put that Monty Leclerc interview up because that's amazing. So if you haven't seen that one, you can go on Rumble and check it out, because it really is. I mean, and I'm not a big gun person either. This is just my business and this is what I do. But listening to him talk, he even pulled me in. So, you know, you could stream that to your TV
I'm
and
really
make
surprised
your
that
wives and
I'm really
girlfriends
surprised
watch.
that series didn't do better. I mean, it didn't get further out of just this community that didn't go further. It's sort of
What do you
surprising to me.
mean?
I guess I
With
would have
what?
the JFK series. I would have
Oh,
imagined
that did really well, though.
I would have imagined that would have done a lot better on the outside.
Oh, I thought it did well.
There was one down here that we didn't miss, one of the paid ones.
Oh, it just
So,
came. Yeah, because we did that one. Okay, it just came in.
yeah.
The Black Rifle book says in passing that the CIA had a parallel program, Project Agile. Is anything known about that?
Well, it very well may be, because if you look at when Project Agile was taking place, it was before we were fully committed to the Vietnam War. So at that time, the CIA was in there, and we had advisors in there. So they were heavily involved with everything that was going on. And when Project Agile went through, basically what it showed was every infantry weapon that we had was outdated for our South Vietnamese allies. That the M16 or AR-15 at the time was the best rifle for them. So I guess if you look at who was involved with it at the time, again, that was before Big Army was pushing it. It was looking at what was the best weapon for our small statured allies. And so I certainly do believe there could be a lot of CIA involvement there, because again, the CIA was involved a lot with what went on there for as far as the training and and doing the advising to the at that time the Viet Minh, the South Vietnamese army. So yeah, that very well could be. It would make sense at the time period.
Dave says he just discovered Rumble and he will be following us. And Blue State Rebel says Mac is on Rumble too, and they won't give you any grief. It's partially owned by Dan Benigno. Who that is?
Mhm.
No idea who that is. Yeah, no, we will be. I will be uploading from to there more as it goes live to YouTube. I'll be making it live on Rumble as well. And so far, it's a pretty easy platform to use. There's been many platforms that have tried to come out to replace YouTube, and they don't succeed, which is unfortunate. But
Fortunately,
maybe this will be it.
fortunately, there was some sense that was
Oh, he's
made
on Fox News.
with some of these things right now. Yeah, I know with Mr. Gunziger and some other guys got together with these guys at YouTube, because again they were going after sound suppressors and things like that. So they did make some headway with some of these things, these new things that came down. But as more things like that come down, what you're doing with you're going to eventually force all gun content off of YouTube. That's until that time comes. All these other smaller things like Rumble are just not going to work. We tried that several years ago when they took us down. And everybody hated YouTube. They wanted to go somewhere else, but
And so, and I
nobody
didn't
would do
start
it.
a new channel because I was uploading to all these other places that were 2A friendly. But at the end of the day, it wasn't viable. If you can't get it to the masses that's on YouTube, then there's no point.
Until YouTube completely shuts off, the gun channels, enforcing everybody if they want gun content to go somewhere else. The other ones are not going to work. You're just going to have piecemeal, a few guys in and out.
Yeah, and they just continue to put the chokehold on, just a little bit tighter. So I've learned to kind of go with it and, reconfigure. We're constantly, going with the changes, and until they kick us off, we will continue to post here. But until then, you definitely have to explore the other places, and hopefully they take off. Hopefully one of them does. I love this one. Because of you, Chris, I look like a genius to my fellow AR gun owners. Thank you.
We also have a little bit of announcement about our America's Rifle book. I have been here signing books like crazy, so we can expect those to start going out now. Again, it was.
I have biceps from lifting books. He has carpal tunnel from signing them.
Unfortunately, it was unforeseeable issues that were going on. But I know I signed over 120, and God knows how many more I'm going to be signing.
Oh, he's going to be signing a lot.
But they are on their way finally. You guys who already were the ones that weren't signed already got them.
Thank you for your patience. It's been a long and arduous process, especially for me. I know some of you have not been happy about the wait, and some of you have been incredibly patient about it. When I started Small Arms Publishing and entered this world, I had no idea what it was going to look like in a post-COVID business environment. I never knew that, there would be paper shortages, and then everything just then there was manufacturing issues and delays, and machines were breaking down that they needed for binding, and then there was a winter storm, and the shipment got stalled, and it was just like, I mean, even for me, it sounded like BS at one point. It was
I'm
like
so
ridiculous, and then
impressed with the quality of this. The quality of America's rifle is really superior to the original black rifle too. The paper is much nicer. The pictures look a lot better. The book just looks a hell of a lot nicer than the original one.
which was a huge like accomplishment for me to take that book, which was, a great work of art, and because Collector Grade does an amazing book, and be
At the
able to
time they did.
take that and start, my own publishing company, and then have to reconfigure that from scratch, and working on, you know, just that amazing gold foil with our logo, and the paper is different than the original book. It's a higher grade paper.
Yeah,
Um,
looks much nicer. The
and
book overall.
even just the outside, the cover of it, the paper, what is it, the protector cover or
Yeah,
whatever.
dust cover.
The dust cover, yeah. It just looks more streamlined and cool, and also it's a personal accomplishment for it to say, Small Arms Publishing on it. And we completely redid the about the author, because obviously that was 20
Updated,
years
yeah.
20 years old. So yeah, the picture was updated, and all that was rewritten and done. And so um, yeah, I was very happy that he looked at it and said, "This looks better than the
Oh,
original."
absolutely. There's
That
no
that
question.
made me feel good, because I worked so hard on getting that to fruition. So it was definitely a proud moment, and everyone who's received theirs so far, and it's basically the unsigned copies, everyone said it's amazing. So all of you that ordered your signed copies, they are going to be flying out the door now. You will get a tracking number emailed to you. And I had taken off signed copies because I didn't want to sell anymore and have people be disappointed because it wasn't coming in. And obviously, my priority was going to be at catching up with all of these pre-orders of these people who've been waiting for so long for it. And I just released it back for signed copies. We won't be having a lot of extra signed copies. He can only sign so many. And so if you really want one, I would suggest you go to smallarmsolutions.com and order a signed copy, because there will be a few of those available. And after that, there won't be any left. And it is a first edition print, and it does say on their first edition, which is very cool. Let's see. What are your opinions of using 40 round PMags in combat situations? Are there any disadvantages or issues with them or carrying them?
The only disadvantage to those is if you have to go prone. With them being longer, it can affect you being able to get closer to the ground. If you look back when the Surefire put out that 100 round coffin magazine. You know what? I took them out and I even put them on full auto, and they worked. But it was the craziest freaking thing. The thing made all kinds of noise when you carried it, and there's no way you could go down prone with it. So, for as far as reliability standpoint, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that magazine. It's just as good as the 30. There's not a problem. Where its problem would be is if you were to go prone and you couldn't get as close to the ground as you needed to. And if you look at all your web gear and all your ammo pouches, those are designed for 30 round magazines, so you could have some difficulty with that if you have covers that go over them. But overall, it's funny. I think I probably would rather have like the 60 round magazine, than go with that 40, because at least the 60 round magazine that you see is the same length as the 30 round magazine, like the D60. I'm sorry, the Surefire 60 round magazine. That's a better option, I think, than going with a 40 round magazine, because it's the same. It's the same size. So if you have to go down, you're still going to be able to get down. But yeah, mechanically, absolutely not. I'm sure something you can make it work.
Sean White on Donor Box. Thank you so much for your donation. He just said welcome back.
Thank you.
It looks like he does have a question. Did Demaco go to Lancer for polymer waffle mags, or did Lancer go to Demaco?
No, it was the green magazine it was initiated by Demaco, and of course Lancer was making had the capability of making magazines and making the polymer magazines. That's what they wanted to do because, as you know, Canada always had a love affair with polymer magazines, like thermal magazines for the C7 that had severe growing pains. And quite frankly, the thermal are still shit today. But they went to work with the Lancer to build this green magazine. Uh, it was an incredible partnership. This is another one of Colt's biggest screw ups because when the magazine was almost finalized, uh, just at that time period is when Colt Defense bought Dymaco and it became Colt Canada. And of course, Colt's management was completely incompetent. They went into Dymaco where you had completely competent people who knew what they were doing. They were doing a final test on the Lancer magazine, Green magazine, where they put DEET on the feed lips and left a camera on it. Came back the next day and they saw that the bond was broken from the DEET between the steel feed lips and the polymer. Bullets were all over the place. So Colt Defense came in and said, "Scrap it. We're done with it." Tobacco was pissed. No, this is a test. We can fix this. Nope, scrap it. Well, that's when Lancer decided that you know what, we have a product here, so we're going to finish it, which they did very quickly. They solved the problem, and guess what comes out? The Lancer L5 magazines. Of course, Lancer has to pay Colt a royalty because Colt TDP was used to make that. But think about it: if Colt would have been smart and they would have just let them finish that, they would have had probably the second most popular polymer magazine in the industry right now. They could have owned. Because obviously Magpul P Mag is number one. Lancer is number two, at least in my opinion, for the top magazines in the world right now. Colt could have owned that. And just because of one test of them coming in and an ignorant decision, they lost it. Tobacco was pissed. Those guys were pissed because they came so close to getting it finalized.
Aaron wants to know, he's curious about your thoughts on what could be the next possible advancements or refinements on the M4A1 AR-15 platform that could advance it.
The only thing at this point that's going to advance this weapons platform are new materials, new barrels that are going to deal with heat better. They're going to deal with accuracy better. They're going to improve. We're really at a peak for as far as development with metallic cartridges. You have companies like Dev Group, X2 Dev Group, who've taken the rifle, they've rethought it with special operations guys to reconfigure it to be more useful to them, to be better for them for what their job is. Still basically the same internal piston rifle, but they've reconfigured the entire receiver to make it so, you know, second stag on things aren't going to get hit accidentally. You have improvements like that, but really, I think you're getting to the point where you're at a evolutionary peak in metallic cartridge development. Because if you look at everything that's coming out, I mean, if you take a look at, you know, Mac just did a video on the M7. He had a 308. He pulled out a rifle that was actually a complete failure. It was a Rock River Arms external piston rifle. And you look at the parts look almost identical. So you're looking at that from over 10, 15 years ago, maybe. So, you know, everything that you're seeing now existed before. It just is wrapped up in a different package. It's the same technology. So, in my opinion, we've reached that emotional peak. You're going to see different lipstick and rouge, but you're not going to see too many more advancements. We've already hit really that peak.
Any thoughts on the S&W M&P 2.0, 4.6, 10 millimeter? I just bought the tack pack, 4 mags and a holster for $588, then minus the $100 mail-in rebate. Should I polish the feed ramp for hardcore bullets?
To be perfectly honest with you, I have tested the SIGs, I have tested the Glock, and I have tested some of these other 10 millimeters. I have not tested the M&P. To be perfectly honest with you, I've never been an M&P fan. If you look at all the military tests that have come out and everything, how poorly they've done, I don't think that they're as good of a gun as the SIG P320 series or the Glock series. So I really haven't given them too much attention. For as far as your feed ramps are concerned, if you're having issues with them feeding, I would, but if not, I would leave it alone. Um, and also, being honest with you, I have not had any really good contacts at Smith and Wesson to get T&E guns. My last Smith and Wesson M&P, I did Brandon over at the gun room, who does my transfers for me. Big supporter of my channel. They're out of his personal collection, so he loaned me those M&Ps, and I don't believe he has one of the 10 millimeters yet. I know he did like the 10 millimeter that I had. He ended up keeping because he did like it. But not an M&P fan. I've never been a fan of any of the Smith and Wesson semi-automatic pistols. But from what I've read and for other people say, they sound like they're a very good gun.
The G11 had the right idea. Do you think the H&K G11 rifle could have worked?
Still, we're here in 2023, and making caseless ammunition is still not a science where it's proven. I think back then it was a neat concept. I don't think that it was technologically feasible to do on a large scale. If you look at even current developments and now versus back in the 80s when they did the original tests for the for the ACR program, I still don't think that we're there to make a reliable caseless ammunition yet. I still don't think we're there. I think that was a neat concept at the time, but I don't think it was practical.
Okay, guys, well, we're going to shut it down for tonight. I am going to be opening up a Q&A for Patreon members. If you're on Patreon at any level, I'm going to open it up, and you can submit questions, and then we're going to film that. So if you're on Patreon, or if you aren't on Patreon, you need to get on there, and you'll be able to submit questions, and no donations. It'll just be reading and going through all of those. But we'll be back in a few days and do another Q&A for everyone else. It was great. So many of you could join us. Thank you for all the likes. It's going up. Thank you for everybody who donated. We appreciate you.
Absolutely.
And just thank you for joining us tonight. We are back. You will be getting lots of new content coming up. I will be in this office a lot.
Yeah, we're doing quite a bit of
Yeah.
filming right now. Quite a bit.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
Have a good night.